Okay, we're recording.
How you doing, everybody? Welcome to the science of fantasy football and the matchup lab in one. Oh my goodness. Why the science of fantasy football? Well, you put a meteorologist and a biologist together, they're going to use a scientific method. And when it comes to something like fantasy football, that is a statistically driven game, using statistics smarter, like a scientist does, will make you a better fantasy football player. Why the matchup lab? Well, when we get all this data churning here in the lab, we can usually figure out how real football games are going to go as well. And join him as he does each and every week. He is the fantasy professor. He's a real professor. It's John Bush. And John,
Yep.
entering the big championship weekend for the conferences, this is when it gets really exciting.
I'm looking forward to the interactions. We will use some of the metrics to try to put things in perspective. It's a beginning, it's not an end. And, there's going to be some opportunities and some caution that I think we will apply. I think Denver's the biggest unknown
Oh,
with the
yeah.
new quarterback. Uh,
Yes.
I'm not convinced Stidham is the next Drew Brees, but we'll see what Sean Payton's got going. That's going to be, to me, the very interesting game. And then on the other side, the Rams, they love away games. My data has shown that, and they have just done so well playing in away situations. They have it one more time, Dennis. And so those are kind of the storylines that I know we're going to talk about, today. I'm looking forward to that. But I think I don't know if you got gripes or you got some pontification. I know I have a little bit before we talk about the games.
Yeah, I've got a little pontification and a little bit about what we're working on here behind the scenes because there's a lot of data that I'm going over right now. And I know a lot of data that you're going over right now when we're trying to figure out things here in fantasy football even more. But, one thing that I do know for sure is there is an effect of a good coach versus a bad coach, a good offensive play caller, offensive coordinator versus a bad one on fantasy football output. We just don't know how big that difference is because we haven't done a study aimed right at that yet. We understand that there's an effect of a really great team defense on how a team's passing game or their wide receiver performance might be as far as the upside consistency that we study. But we don't know exactly where that is yet because we haven't formulated the right study. Doesn't mean we won't, folks. It just means we are at that research point of looking at that. We're not even sure which of our metrics is better at forecasting the future. Although we do have some very interesting data that we have been looking at that might give us a good look at maybe players to avoid. But the biggest thing that I see going on nowadays, like here we are, late January, the league season doesn't even start for a couple of months. We aren't even into the NFL draft for 3 more months. OTAs and then training camps, all of that is way down the road. And I got so many people telling me exactly how this coaching carousel, the whole changes that, oh, yeah, if so and so is the offensive coordinator with the Chargers, it's Omarion Hampton to the moon. Lad McConkey will have a big comeback. And all these proclamations. And I my little brain, Professor, thinks back to about this time last year when people weren't all that gung ho about the first year of Coach Mike McDaniel or McDonald in Seattle. He just had a 10-win season, which was about what you were getting from the previous coach. How many people picked him to be the best team in the NFC this year before the season started? Very few. So when you hear all these fantasy football experts proclaiming that, oh, this is the move, this is a great coaching move, or this is a horrible coaching move, whether it's for real football or fantasy football, take a step back and understand. Think about what these people were saying last year at this time about various coaches. You know, and then see how their track record was. My answer to a lot of these coaching changes, how is it going to impact fantasy football? When I'm giving that answer on January 24th, I am a big believer that the right response right now needs to lead with, I'm not sure. Because if you think you are sure of who the top 25 players at any position are going to be in fantasy football in 2026, you are fooling yourself because there's so much uncertainty right now. Yes, I feel pretty confident that Bijan Robinson is going to finish top 5 at running back in 2026 if he doesn't get hurt. But I can't tell you a lot more than that, folks. Nor can anybody with any level of certainty right now, because there is so much chaos going on. There are so many changes. And if we're thinking that we know how all these changes are going to distill into fantasy football performance right now on January 24th, we are fooling ourselves.
Don't want to be the fool at the table, right, Dennis? I agree. There's a lot of things happening. I actually am not really paying attention to it, Dennis. I'm letting you do that because it's you enjoy, shall we say, squawking in a good way, squawking on the internet. You like to tweak people, and I'm ready for you. Your total fantasy points are deceiving. That always, you get a lot of anger from the sidelines. So I'm waiting for that season to where Dennis throws the red bead out and watch everybody. Basically you're all being deceived, and that makes people angry. And I do like that season. I don't know what we're going to call it. Dennis teases you season, but that's always my favorite. You've been slacking off a little bit. You need to circle back with the old deceiving points. That'll get everybody stirred up. And so I do enjoy that, but I'm letting you kind of filter through. Given what I saw last year with your opportunity index, folks, you can go find that, and some of his stuff coming. I'm just letting Dennis have his process. Sometimes when you latch on to a big catch, big fish, you let them run the line, and Dennis is going to be running that line and tugging and pulling, and I'm at the end in the shore, and I get to collect what he catches. And so I'm going to let him do that, and I know I'll be getting my opportunity index, my probabilities, and it will inspire my thinking, and I'll be ready about August to collect on all that, Dennis. So I say take the bait and run with it. Like I said, tease a few people, deceiving points, and some of these other little tidbits. I'm looking forward to how you make the season kind of shortened by me chuckling at some of the stuff. So I'm kind of going to sit in the weeds and let everybody froth around a little bit, and we'll see where it all is next August, Dennis. I'm gonna stay in the data cave, and you and I will talk secret clubhouse stuff and amazing data and stuff we're digging up, and we might share scraps with people, but and some people might be saying this, well, we want scraps. Well, fine. We want money. So I'll be expecting those checks to come rolling through the door here if you want. But so far, ESPN's not paying me. So I'm keeping my stuff secret in the data cave, Dennis.
Yeah, that's where it needs to be secret. Speaking of the most deceiving of total points this
See, I
year.
know you like that. You forgot how much fun you had with that.
So the most deceiving this year
Hmm.
was Michael Wilson from Arizona. So Michael Wilson finished with the 10th most fantasy football points at wide receiver. 10th most. He didn't start making an impact on your fantasy football team
Yes.
until week 11. That was his first game above median all season long. Now, once he got there, he hit on all but 1 week that was at or above median, and he had some fabulous, fabulous weeks. But of course, we were all over picking him up when Marvin Harrison Jr. started having injury problems. That was not a player you had to draft. And if you draft him as the 10th best wide receiver next year, because he finished 10th in total points this year,
Ruh-roh.
you're going to be disappointed. Now, that doesn't mean that he won't be top 35 next year and a viable fantasy football option. But if you chase that WR10 finish, his MVP was only 41
Ruh-roh.
for the season. That's awful. Like 41 in MVP.
That's a 5.
That's 42nd
Yeah.
best wide receiver. That is not something you want to chase. Now, I will say this. From week 11 through week 18, and that's a pretty sizable. That's
a nice
8
little
games.
chunk.
That's 8 games. MVP well over 120.
That's a
which
1.
is a top 5 wide receiver. Yeah,
Yep.
that's a top 5 wide receiver.
Yep.
So he did perform. And I love those short data samples at the end of a rookie year.
Yeah.
That's how we got
But
on.
everybody
Amon-Ra.
wakes up to that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, they didn't with Amon-Ra St. Brown. Remember, they were year 2. He
but I
can't
think
cope.
Wilson, I think people amplified him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because he was a quote unquote league winner down the stretch. So he's going to be overdrafted next year.
When you use that term league winner, that costs you value, Dennis. And I doubt I'll draft him at, even his value. I don't want an even money racehorse to be even money. I want to get 3-1 on him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I want some money in my pocket. I want some value. So, I want Michael Wilson, at a ADP 30, and I know that's not going to happen. So I probably won't be drafting him.
And here's the joy of that, okay, is I don't know where he's going to finish next year. I don't know what I'm going to project him for MVP yet, because I don't know what that team's going to look like yet.
Yep.
So it's very possible that with a different quarterback, a different coach, a different play caller,
Free agency, who knows who could be
free
there?
agency,
And
who knows?
yeah,
Maybe they trade him. Maybe somebody comes with an offer they can't refuse and they trade him.
maybe he
Don't have a
goes to New Orleans. Now there you go.
Yeah, no clue what's going to happen. So I will not tell you where I think he's going to rank next year yet because I
Right.
don't have a clue. But he's not going to be WR10. Not going to be. He's not going to be the 10th best or in the top 10 next year. And I feel pretty confident of saying that. And why do I feel confident saying that? He's never done it.
Nope.
So I'll bet against him being a top 10 guy next year. But doesn't mean he won't end up being on some teams. It'll all depend on where he is. I have no clue where he's going to be. But that's, again, we'll figure that one out in a few weeks and months and all that. But right now, I would bet against him being a huge value because everybody is on him because of that strong finish. And that's how year-end points are always, always deceiving. Now, points per game, he would have been much lower. But in total points, he stayed healthy for 17 games and he had a strong finish. That's what is going to put you in the top 10 sometimes in fantasy points, and it won't mean a thing. But people love to chase, whether it's last week to this week in waivers, whether it's last year to this year in fantasy points. People love to chase that. You got to chase volume. You got to chase upside consistency in fantasy football. If you do that, you will be paid off. But simply chasing last year's points, we already know that doesn't work.
So Dennis, did I lose you?
Nope, you got me.
Okay. So changing the subject, I thought I would help people who are the few that are listening in your, let's see, you could put this in your diary, but I wanted to share at least one question that I got answered from Grok. That's the AI that's on Twitter or X, and show y'all a prompt that I got, and thought I'd talk about it a little bit. In other words, uh, I think it's the right way to approach using AI, especially now where things are still unclear. Dennis just gave us a lecture about the unclarity of total points and players, and teams are not even built yet. So it's not settled. And by the way, what's the hurry? Dennis, my last comment to you. What do you think? What's the hurry? People want to figure stuff out. What is there a prize? Yeah, I told y'all Michael Wilson was going to be number 12 in 2026. And so I get the prize. What prize do you get? My prize is that paycheck. It comes with all those leagues I win. There's your prize. And if he helps you, good. If he doesn't, good. That there's your prize, is your rate of return, Dennis. You know, that's your trick right there. And uh, I'm just saying, there's a lot of things that I think people, there's no hurry. They're impatient and anxious. And if you lost last year, maybe you're even more anxious. And then you grab anything that flies by. You can't be that way. You can't. So while you're getting anxious, I say use AI and ask questions and learn and educate yourself. This is research season. I know people they don't know what that is, but Dennis and I do. We're doing research, and you guys can use AI for research. So here's an example, Dennis. I sent this to Dennis. I may put this up on our site. I probably should. I asked the question, what are relationship of player value versus player metrics versus strength of team? That's a big question that I think people would wrestle with, or they should. Uh, you may not have seen it said that way, but Grok had some comments, and he or she or it, I guess it's it. I hate to use the right, got to use the right pronouns, Dennis. Uh, and
Are
so,
we sure it's not a they and them?
yeah, they, them, or them there. I don't know. I don't know. Um, not sure. And you need to look at what player value is. And Grok says player value is measured by fantasy points per game or total fantasy points. So realize that Grok is only telling us what most people use. Notice it didn't say, and people value players using consistency. So right away, Dennis and I, the way we look at it is not in the mainstream, Dennis, which is good. And so we will have an advantage. And again, Dennis just lectured us about total fantasy points. Grok doesn't mention that could be deceiving, right? It's just here it is, folks. This is what everybody thinks. So that means everybody kind of gets the same ranking. And then they say these points and values driven by volume. Now that is correct. I like the idea of volumes, but targets, snaps, routes, efficiency of those, and Grok says this explains the majority of variance in production. And the thing is, that's because he's looking only at these metrics. So but if there's things that are not on the drawing board, he won't be able to include that. So there's no mention of consistency here, Dennis. So the good news is Dennis and I are mining in areas nobody else is looking. When I see nobody else, most 90%, even more. There's a few guys, Bob Lung, Reedy, Coventry, there's some Greg Kelly. These are smart folks, but for the most part, the mainstream is saying it's this way, Dennis. So I was inspired to see this because it's like, you good. That means all my findings will have a lot more impact. If you go to the racetrack and everybody knows what the horse did last week, it's not going to pay anything, right? If it won by 12 lengths, everybody's talking. If it's ridden by one of the Ortiz brothers, or if it's in California and Bob Baffert's the trainer, everybody and the hot dog man even knows that. There's not going to be much mustard on that hot dog, Dennis. There's just everybody's going to have it, and there's just not any value. So there is some good news here, folks, but there is some bad news, and people can get befuddled and tricked by using AI. So you've got to focus on where it needs to be focused. And Dennis and I are still trying to figure where that is. We're not done by any means, but it's nice to see what they think. I was also curious about strength of team. And Grok says it's not as important. So right away, Grok says this is important and this is 10, 20% of importance. When I see that, then I say, oh, well, how do we know that's real? So as a stats person, if you can figure out a way to measure team strength or tendencies, maybe that is more important than the public thinks, and you would have an advantage. So this is maybe overused and everybody's digging here. Maybe they're not digging in here so much. So again, this answer could give you some indications of where you should mine a little bit. I've tried to do this with my efficiency dentists, my home away splits, looking at team tendencies at home, away, and routes, and uh, rushing and passing, and these kind of things. And there is some of that discussion, but not as much as I would have thought. And so you can go through here. I'm probably going to stop here, but if you want to read further, Dennis, there's all sorts of other metrics and variables they're getting down to the position. I do like the top down. Here's the top of it,
Yes.
and it gets to the position, and eventually you would get to the player. So I do like that. And I argue that people should look at some of this, but I think this will point people in some directions. And if you see terms like efficiency, player usage, and you're not sure what that is, just ask that question. Grok, what is player usage and efficiency? Does it really dominate with team offensive line? Just ask them that question. So you can use this, copy it, and then come back and ask questions about these points, and you can add to your understanding a little bit. The trouble is it's not telling you what is going to be valuable or not. That's the thing. It's not, I don't know. That's why research takes a while, folks. And I do some shorthand because I've been doing it for 35 years. And so if you're just learning to do research, this can be overwhelming. And I bet most people won't get deep into this. I'm telling you, there's some nuggets there. And it's not like, oh, there's not big money there. It's little nuggets that add up over years of work. And again, it's cutting the wood to finally get the fire. And most people want the fire and they'll worry about the wood later. And that's still the case here. But anyway, Dennis, I thought people might need a professor's view of how I would use AI in fantasy football research.
Yeah, that's brilliant, actually. Because here's the kicker. In fantasy football, the most wonderful thing about fantasy football, folks, when it comes to any kind of forecasting I've ever done in life, in weather forecasting, simply beating the consensus doesn't always help the client. You've got to be pretty doggone close to reality and beat consensus. In fantasy football, you just have to beat consensus. If I am right about every player versus consensus, it lets me understand which players to draft. Because here's the thing. The most important thing with player value in fantasy football is their cost. It's their ADP. And here's the rationale behind that. What you spend on a car or your daily drive, like that is, if you don't know the cost of that car, how can you evaluate which is the right car for you? Because everybody's got different tastes on what they want in a car, but without understanding the cost of that vehicle, hey, I want a sedan versus an SUV versus a truck. I'm going to pay more depending on the type of vehicle I choose. And then I'm going to pay more for more luxury items in that vehicle. And if that's not important to me, then that's a waste. And that's not showing me my vehicle value, because without knowing the price tag, I can't tell you anything about how valuable that vehicle is or not. And in fantasy football, if I'm drafting a player in the first round versus the 10th round, there's a whole different strategy involved and a whole different expectation level involved. If I'm drafting a guy in the first round, other than injury, which you have no control over, I mean, we saw CMC. Oh, he's got a big injury risk. Played all 17 games. Oh, Malik Neighbors, he's a great young stud, out after 3 games. You cannot predict injuries. Yes, you can use injury history as maybe a red flag, as a reason you don't want to draft a guy too high. But first round, I just want safety, because anybody I get in that first round is going to have a great performance versus the metrics I'm looking at. If they've gotten through my metrics and the professor's metrics, they're going to have a good season unless they get hurt. Because we don't get fooled by guys. We know, I want a guy who's a bulletproof, like downside is 100 MVP in the first round. If I don't have that, I'm looking somewhere else. And I'm going to get the player that's got that safety on the low side to go with a very good high side. I want a short range. I want a small range of outcomes. I don't want a guy who's going to be a 70 to a 140 in the first round. I don't want to take that much risk. So without knowing ADP, player value is poorly defined.
And Dennis, I added the question, where is ADP cost discussion, Grok?
Yeah. Yes.
They didn't. So realize, folks, there's flaws in AI. It can only give what's out there. What that tells me, Dennis, is very few people have ever written about the relationship of value and cost and ADP. It's hidden, and they'll talk about it, but somehow in the articles, I don't think Grok looks at podcasts. I think there's a lot more that kind of discussion you would find there. But actually in the written articles, Dennis, the fact that it wasn't brought up when I asked value says it's not out there a lot.
Very curious.
Yeah, isn't that curious? So folks, you can kind of start realizing the pros and cons of it. But this is a good place to start. And that's the only thing I was doing. And so again, as a professor, this is not the end, Dennis. This is just the beginning. And right away, and Dennis framed it well. Where is that discussion? And it's not there. And so that means player value is really not defined. It's defined by metrics. And see, notice I asked the question, value versus metrics, and Grok really didn't tease that out, because I don't think it's been teased out before, Dennis. So I think there's a flaw there. And people say, well, AI, everybody's going to, well, that's fine, because that probably means you and I will still have advantages because, look at what spit back. And that's not how I would define value, because at horse racing, it doesn't matter if a horse has an exercise rider and is not in the gate, and they try to stimulate that by adding a horse or two, but it's still not with the crowd yelling. It's still, the horse knows it's fake,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they know it's when it's real time, and they try to school those horses. It's not real. And they say that Kentucky Derby, those 3-year-olds coming around that corner and they get that wall of
Oh,
sound, and
yes.
they've never had anything really like that. And that can really be different as well. And that's why, these NFL teams will have loud music and stuff broadcast during practices if they're going to stadiums that are loud, like Seattle, is known for being a loud stadium. And so I don't think if people were talking about these kind of things, but player value, they're not talking about cost. And to me, that's the first. I'll take a good player at great cost versus a great player at poor cost, because you're putting all your eggs. If somebody said, I'll let you draft CMC, but it's going to cost you 3 picks, you'd be like, that's crazy. I mean, auction simulates that, right? That's why, and you say, well, you don't play auction? No. Why would I play where I wouldn't have an advantage? I like the snake draft because I do get advantages. I think I do win these cost value advantages. Why would I play in auctions where people are smart? I don't want to be the dummy at the table. I want to be the smarty at the table. So, Dennis, unless there's some, goobers and gomers at the auction block, I'm probably not going to play a lot of auction. Why would I do that? And I'm here to make money. And so I want as many dummies playing as possible. And so, but anyway, notice Dennis went all the way through, and there is, and I put it the way it should be put in blue, but that's what Dennis, he immediately latched on to that. Folks, that exactly, it was the whole point of this. And that's why I asked value versus, I was trying to tease out that, and I got no teasing, Dennis. Glock didn't tease me, didn't do it.
No, and this isn't me saying that AI is worthless. Okay, it's not. There's a use for AI, and it does a good job of identifying the consensus, and that's important to
It
know in
is to know
fantasy
what
football.
everybody's thinking.
And it saves you a heck of a lot of time.
Mhm.
But don't get intimidated by any computer model in weather forecasting. If a computer model is it's fallible in weather forecasting, just like AI. AI is not the expert of all things. AI is really good at finding where the consensus is. In sports gambling, the consensus is often wrong. In horse racing, the consensus is called the favorite. And that is wrong 2 out of every 3 times. So just because somebody is telling you that this is the favorite, this is the consensus is often wrong. The noise of the crowd in fantasy football is often wrong. It doesn't mean it's wrong all the time. And all I got to do is beat consensus. So if I say a guy is the 5th best wide receiver and the consensus says he's the 15th best, I don't have to be right that he's top 5. I just got to be right that he's top 10 and I've made money. And in fantasy football, it's even more simple than that. I need a guy who's going to be good for 4 to 6 games at a time. If I got these little 4 to 6 game runs out of players that I draft in the 10th round and later, and I'm correct at figuring out the right games to play that player, then I'm going to make a lot of money. And that's the intrigue. And that's why the professor and I do the data research that we do, because we're trying to always gain an advantage versus what AI is telling you is the consensus of the way people are looking at the problem.
And Dennis, one more thing, since I really wasn't planning on getting deep, but here it is, examples, team strength, and they'll say measured by one, two, three, four potential variables. Is that the order of importance? That's how Grok listed it. Is which one is more valuable? In other words, there are statistical ways that you can look at these metrics and figure out what they contribute to team strength. Assuming team strength is even something that will help you on this cost question. Okay, there's no just, they're saying 10 to 30% of the show. 30% is not bad if nobody else is using it. So again, this seems to, but it's unclear. This seems clear, doesn't it? But it's really not. If somebody's used to analysis and they see this, like I said, which one's more important? Is this 80% of team strength, EPA versus play? Is the O-line performance 80%? What is the metrics there inside the definition? And Grok hasn't done that. In fact, can't and won't. And he's throwing darts and hoping something sticks. And here's a good one, ecosystem support. What the hell does that mean? I've got an idea what it means, but I'm not sure. What does that mean? And it's a lot of interesting things said here. I'm not sure if it all makes sense and this is the way it needs to be researched and done, but it's a starting point. And you can, as long as you are skeptical, right? And you could be deceived by some of this stuff. And we tried to show you just in these two paragraphs where some of the issues are, Dennis. So be aware, but this can be fun. So I would say this is fun. I like seeing, again, kind of reiterating that consistency wasn't discussed and that they really didn't define things. They did, but they didn't. League winner, imagine putting that in. What does that mean? Or to the moon, or it's their season. Your people, Dennis laughs. We laugh not because we use those, because nobody really knows there's no definitions. We've been saying that for 3 years. People don't define things. Grok even doesn't define it, and it's nebulous, and I'm not sure it causes more issues than not. But anyway, Dennis, this is a beginning. Y'all, if I get a chance, I'll throw it up there. If not, you can ask this prompt, and I think, assuming you should get the same thing. I don't know. I haven't tested the reproducibility of the Grok prompts, Dennis. That would be, if you ask the question 3 times, will you get the same output? I don't know. I don't know if they've done that. I don't know how you measure these, GP chat and Grok and all these other software, AI softwares. I don't know the consistency of those.
Yeah, I've actually tested it for music with Alexa. Because I've asked Alexa, what is the best, or what is your favorite Genesis song?
Right.
I've got the same answer more than once. So it tells me that there's at least some consistency, but all you're doing for the most part using AI is finding where the consensus is. And that's valuable data. When your whole goal in fantasy football is beating.
Well, again, finding what's not there is important as well.
Yes. Very.
What is there? What's not there?
Very true. Very
Yeah.
true indeed. Well, let's switch gears again and let's
Yep.
get to our matchup lab part of the show. Oh my goodness. Big showdowns today or this weekend. New England versus Denver and the Los Angeles Rams versus
Yeah.
the Seattle Seahawks. Let's break it down by the data.
Yeah. So New England 25, Denver 16. I think if Bo Nix hadn't got hurt, this would be a lot closer. I'm not sure if New England still wouldn't be the favorite, but it wouldn't be this far apart. 42, uh, that's getting close to squirrel level, Dennis. This is at Denver. So there are some disadvantages for New England playing away. Daps wise, there's nothing that is crazy. Denver's running game is going to be tested, but everything else looks like Stidham should have opportunity with Ingram, his tight end, and his wide receivers. Uh, Trying to figure out who's active and not, but I think the issue for New England is stopping the run, and that's going to make Stidham pass. So it seems to me if Denver wins, it's because Stidham, uh, basically did better than Vegas anticipates, Dennis. So I think having Nick's gone pretty much simplifies this for Vegas and probably for me too. New England, there's nothing really scary. Hunter Henry should have an opportunity to score a touchdown. I think he's fine. Uh, New England's kicker has opportunities. Nothing scares me. Play them all in New England. It seems to point, the DAP seems to point and agree with the Vegas. I'm not sure there's anything dramatic here. I don't think people are scared of this. Denver is 11% more efficient at home. Of course, that's with Knicks. And they tend to be balanced, rushing and passing. New England is about 0.98, so they're not too bad at home. They can play away or home, and they're balanced in away situations again. And so both teams seem balanced. I think it's Stidham. I think that's the show. And, Sean Payton claiming that, he's the man now. I mean, I understand what you're going to say, right? You don't want to say, yeah, this guy's a goofus and we're in trouble. I mean, but I think Vegas reads this right, Dennis. And I think if Denver has a shot, Stidham is surprising and the run game for Denver surprises us. And I'm just not seeing that as a output. I pick New England. I think everybody's pretty much on that bandwagon.
So everybody's been talking about the Knicks. Knicks has outstayed him as in at quarterback. That is well-known knowledge. But here's another one that might be significant on the injury front. Harold Landry, middle linebacker for New England, is out.
Ooh.
Will that allow Denver to have more luck in the passing or the running game, I should say, especially right up the middle? But Denver has their starting center, Forsyth, listed as questionable. He's supposed to play, but he did miss some snaps in the previous game. So, do those two things counteract each other and keep that Denver rushing game in a tough matchup? That's the big question. I think what Landry being out does more than anything else is it maybe says this is going to be a higher scoring game. Denver's defense has given up some big points in a few games, even at home. And New England's given up a few points to some teams as well. So I like the over in this one. I wouldn't be surprised to see the score closer to 50 points combined between the two of them. Now, that is saying that Stidham is not going to be horrible at quarterback. But here's the thing. Bo Nix wasn't very good in the first 3 quarters of games. So will Stidham be okay? Will he be just not turn the ball over? And on the flip side of that, does Drake May have trouble? Because last week he fumbled the ball a few times. He had some trouble giving up the ball. That's going to be the key. If New England stays clean, then they win big. But if New England puts the ball on the ground and gives up some turnovers like they have, then I think this is going to be a close game. But I think it's going to be a higher scoring game. So I like the over. I like New England, but I would not lay 4.5. I think this might even be like a last minute field goal gets it done if Stidham is any good at all. And I'm kind of betting on him to be as good as Nix has been in the first 3 quarters of Denver games.
Well, Dennis, if we were playing props, sounds like you would be shopping for some props for Stidham then.
I might, if he's listed under 220 yards passing,
Yeah.
I'll take that bet.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
if RJ Harvey is listed lower than 60 yards rushing because of that tough defense, I would take that bet. I think he'll be closer to about 75, 80 yards on the ground, and Stidham maybe about 240, 250 in the air.
Okay.
Now, that doesn't say that Stidham won't turn the ball over.
Yeah.
But this kid's got a live arm. We just haven't seen anything from him in the last 2 years. It'll be curious to see how he steps up on the moment of the big game with a chance to send his team to the Super Bowl. Boy, what a list of guys that would be. How about this for a list of quarterbacks that came in and made their first start of the season in a championship situation? Roger Staubach in the NFC Championship. Earl Morrall,
oh boy,
coming off the bench. And you got to go all the way back to George Blanda in the 50s for the Bears. So those are the guys that he joins, and with mixed results. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. The nightcap on Sunday, the NFC Championship game. 2 teams that are very familiar with each other out there in the wild, wild west of the NFC, the Rams and the Seahawks.
Seahawks 25, Rams 20, 2.5 points, 60 to 46. So almost a Husky game. Vegas thinks there's going to be more points flipped around. Close game. I think the Rams have shown pluckiness, Dennis. They've shown it, and they like away. They are 8% better away, but Seattle is 35% more efficient at home. That's crazy. And Rams are a little bit more rush versus pass, a little bit. And Seattle is that way too. So this game, each team wants to kind of rush a little bit more. Notice the efficiencies for the whole season are pretty much dead on. So to me, this is a very competitive game. Seattle does have the home field advantage. That's why Vegas did 2.5 points. I think if Seattle was playing at the Rams could be favored. I think this is how Vegas is setting this up. I will say Rams have, Stafford's, he has to earn his biscuits, Dennis. That, it's tough every which way but loose. Puka's going to have to be Puka. he's going to have to pukate all his defenders. I just invented a word there. He's going to have to put the pucation to them, and that's how the Rams win. It's on Puka's shoulders here. Uh, the running game, Williams is going to have to do enough that Puka leads the team, and Stafford is Stafford. Seattle, on the other hand, it's pretty much play them all, Dennis, from running to passing. The Charbonnet's out, so it's Walker could be walking into the end zone, Dennis. That might be part of your parlay snap thing here. Uh, AJ Barner could slip in. This could be the tight end, JSN. This could be a 3 touchdown parlay here. Walker, JSN, Barner parlay here. If you want to get aggressive for a buck, that'd be about all I'd play on this game because I'm not much into betting. Dennis, I'm going to take Seattle, but I'm at Rams. I have overlooked the Rams every game, and they have surprised me. So uh, in a pick 'em, I'll still pick Seattle, but I'm not betting on the money line on either one of these because I don't think this truly could be last team with the ball. This could even go overtime and get crazy, and I would love to see it. Wouldn't that be a great thing? So a New England versus Rams or Seattle, I think either one would be entertaining. So as far as Super Bowl this year, I think either one would make a great Super Bowl. I think each one would be very intriguing. I think Darnold may be healthy enough to come back, and if he can, then I think Seattle has an advantage. If Darnold doesn't play, that could be an issue. But right now, I'm reluctantly picking Seattle. But if you told me Rams had the ball last, I'd probably flip my pick to Rams. That's how close I think this game actually is.
Very interesting results between these two teams during the regular season because they've already faced each other twice and they both held serve on their own home field.
Yep.
But here's the thing. Only 40 points were scored when they played in Los Angeles. 75 points scored the last time these two faced off in Seattle, with Seattle, of course, winning that thrilling game. And I think it was a Thursday night game, week 16,
Oh, I
where they
remember
won.
that.
They won in
Yeah.
overtime by going for 2 points
Oh, okay.
instead of going for just the tie and giving the Rams the ball one more time because there wasn't going to be enough time for them to get the ball back from the Rams, but the Rams could have driven down for a field goal. Neither team could stop the other team at the end of that game. So I look at this, and Seattle only gave up 20 or more points 6 times during the regular season. Two of those 6 were to the Rams. They only gave up 30 or more twice, and one of them was the Rams. So I look at this as being a high scoring game. I'm going to say it's going to be over that 46 and a half. I think they'll be both in the upper 20s. So maybe 55, 56 points, that kind of a deal. And I think it's going to come down to, does Seattle turn the ball over early in the game? That's been a problem. So, and can they get that running game going? Charbonnet's out, so it'll be leaning on Kenny Walker. Can he get it done in the rushing game? And that's more of a team thing than a player thing because we saw Walker have a big game last week. So this is an intriguing matchup. Seattle's defense is very, very tough, but they just gave up 37 points in week 16 to the Rams. So I think there will be some big play potential. It's going to be a Stafford game all the way. is going to be Stafford, Puka, Devontae Adams, because I don't think you can run consistently on this Seattle team. In fact, even though they scored 37 points in their loss week 16,
Yeah.
Williams averaged 3 yards a carry. Corum averaged 3.4 yards a carry. Like, yeah, between the two of them, 118 yards on 37 carries. That is very inefficient. They will be trying to run the ball a lot because that's what kept Seattle from being able to dominate. I mean, Stafford threw for 457 yards.
Yeah.
Most of the teams haven't thrown for 220 against Seattle. So this is going to be two teams that know each other well. And the reason I'm playing that over, I wouldn't bet this game either way on the money line. I think you're right. It comes down to a last second thing swinging one way or the other, depending on who has the ball last. Look at those scaled efficiencies. Both very high, right?
Yes.
That's pretty strong. That to me says more than 46.5 points. I love the over in this game.
Yeah, that's something I need to do research on, Dennis. I haven't done that.
Yes. And I think that will be another one of our great research lessons, because here it is, folks. We got 3 games left in the NFL playoffs.
Yeah.
But we will continue with the Matchup Lab portion of this show, changing to the Data Lab
after the Super Bowl. Yeah.
In the off season. So head on over to the scienceoffantasyfootball.com and the sportsaffiliation.com. Check out all of the great matchup data from the professor. You could check out my articles and my rankings for how players did during the regular season. We will have
the final report, Dennis, was really a great article. I need to halt that again for you.
That was a huge article. That was a long
That was a
huge.
In fact, Dennis, right now, let me share it again. Leaders of the pack, final one. Let me share. And so, folks, if you're listening, I am sharing with this again, and just trying to get some good stuff here, Dennis. And let's see. Here it is. It takes about 3 clicks. This should be just a 1-click share, and you have to go through and go through, and your head's exploding. And okay, there it is. Okay, I just shared it again in case somebody is new that is listening. Thank you. And so there it is. And I shared it, Dennis. So your article, I think, is really good, and we'll do more stuff coming in the off season. Our biggest thing is, what do we actually share, right? What do we keep to our secret selves in the data cave? And I don't know. Dennis is too sweet. He wants to help all y'all, and I'm a little bit greedy. So you can boo the professor at the expo, knowing he's got secret stuff in his head. Probably too many gumbo recipes, but I got a little bit of fantasy football knowledge somewhere between the horse racing. It's in there somewhere, Dennis. So anyway, you can come boo me at the expo saying, tell us everything.
And be sure to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel here at the Sports Affiliation. And hey, come on
back. And the Discord,
here.
Didn't it?
Yes, and the new Discord. I haven't even figured out how to do the
do
Discord.
All that, yeah.
Do I need to wear do I have to get my old 70s leisure suit out so I can go in Discord? Discord?
I think I'll get you a Dennis Fantasy Football Disco Duck. Let me make you a new icon for that. Disco
Very
Duck.
Good. Oh my
Rick Dees, remember him?
Oh yeah.
Disco Duck.
Oh my goodness, folks. And come on back here next week for another edition of the Science of Fantasy Football and the Matchup Lab.
Okay, folks, get to work. Quack, quack.